Andrew McManus was the promoter for her last Australian tour in 2010 and he joins us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
You spent a bit of time with Whitney Houston. What were your impressions of her?
I found her to be an incredibly warm and passionate woman, and I just hearing off all the reports this morning, I hear now Bobby Christina's been rushed to hospital. And that's, from my point of view, because I know how passionate and close they were, Whitney actually was more like a sister to her than a mother. And the time that 6 weeks I suppose I had, and it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you are with someone for 6 weeks, and when you're on tour, you have breakfast with the act and you get close to them. And the main thing during that period of time, because the media was so horrid to her, we did actually get quite close and a bond. And it's just devastating news.
She put in some pretty ordinary performances, though, in that tour. How did she deal with that? And did you see any evidence of drug taking while you were with her over those 6 weeks?
I can absolutely say there's no drugs on that tour. And I've been on tours when artists have been trying to procure them. And it's always the one road to getting drugs for an act is normally through the road crew. And we can tell you there was nothing. She came out and she was a little bit non-stage ready, and that's the biggest criticism I had. She'd only done one show in Korea beforehand. She came down with Michael Jackson's dancers, because we all know what happened with Michael, so they were ready to go, so she hired them. And in Brisbane, in the first night, she tried to keep up with them. And she ran out of puff in the third song. So the next day when we sat down and the press went into a frenzy, I said to her, look, people want to come and hear you sing. They don't really want to see it. This is not a Britney Spears show. This is a Whitney Houston. So, and as the tour went on, she did get stronger. And one of the great moments that I remember was in Sydney when the crowd was there for the love and the passion of Whitney Houston. And she got to that note in I Will Always Love You, that we all know that note. And she actually just gave it her all and nailed it. And the crowd as one stood up and gave her a standing ovation because they knew how hard she was trying. And when I spoke to her one morning and said to her, look, I'm really sorry about this frenzy. It was nearly as if the media in Australia had already had the headline, Houston, we've got a problem, before we even got here, And she said to me, Andrew, this is my whack that God's got for me. It's what I've got. I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I can tell you that I give it my all every night. And if the people are not good enough, or it's not good enough for the people, and they're not happy enough, I can't do anything about it.
You mentioned her daughter, Bobby Christina. What were your impressions when you met Whitney Houston in terms of what she would say and talk about when she talked about her daughter? Well,
as I said, it was more like a sister relationship than a mother-daughter, and they had a bond that was incredible. And whilst the tour was on, it was her birthday, and we took them out on the harbour, and it was just the inner group, the inner sanctum of people. And it was very much champagne only. It was, as I said, that's when you see them relaxing, and that was the birthday cake, champagne, and that was about as illicit as it got. And she was so warm with her daughter, if that's the right way to put it, whereas they went shopping together. They were inseparable, and that's why I can imagine that she would be distressed beyond,
You say you only saw Whitney Houston with a glass of champagne on the tour, but she herself spoke of her problems with harder drugs. Given that, were you surprised when you read of the circumstances of her death yesterday?
Look, during the period, and again, I suppose you can only take so much, and although she was an incredibly resilient woman, and the time, as I said, was 6 week window that I had with her, to continue then going on and went on to London and on to Europe, and the tour was riddled with bad press and riddled with criticisms. It's got to get to you eventually. And the fact that, again, I'm like you, I can only hearing what is secondhand. And if she's gone and taken some sleeping pills and fallen asleep in the bath, that's, it could happen to anyone. Tragically, it happened to Whitney Houston.
And in terms of the timing of her death, right before the Grammy Awards, what do you think we're likely to see at the Grammy Awards in terms of tributes to her?
I think it'll be probably one of the most sad Grammys ever produced. I think it'll be a very much a memorial to Whitney. I can't imagine Ken Ehrlich not creating it now and turning it around into a night of, this is one of the greatest singers the world has ever seen, we've just lost. You cannot but believe that it's going to be a very, very emotional night.
Have you spoken to anyone from her team?
Spoke to her agent last night from William Morris, and he's devastated. And we've had some dialogue because I didn't want to be speaking for her today unless I had their approval. And they were more than happy because they knew that I had her back when she was down here. And I just think the reason I need to speak today is not necessarily clear her name in any way, shape or form, but just say to the Australian public, the media more so than the public, you were very cruel to her. Now you're being all loving to her, and that's what she deserved. And at the end of the day, the people that came to the tour, and whether they criticised her or they loved her, I hope they've still got their ticket and they keep it because, I have fond memories from it. And she was, without doubt in the world, probably the only other person I could say come near to her vocal range would be Mariah Carey. We've lost someone who's just, one of the greats.